If people knew you during your teenage years, would they say you were a lot different from how you turned out to be like as an adult? Well, the same is kind of true for Joseph Smith. After the first vision, Joseph Smith has a period of time where he knows he's called of God but hasn't received any further instructions. And in his 1838 history, he recorded that between the ages of 14 and 17, he mingled with all kinds of society, and he frequently fell into many foolish errors and displayed the weakness of youth and the foibles of human nature. I was guilty of levity and associated with jovial company, etc., not consistent with that character, which ought to be maintained by one who was called of God as I had been. He also continues, this would not be strange to anyone who recollects my youth and is acquainted with my native cheery temperament. Now, part of that might have just been that Joseph Smith was a goofy kid that had fun, that enjoyed himself, and wasn't that different from other teenagers. And part of it is understood by helping us know a little bit more about the cultural environment that Joseph Smith lived in. Joseph Smith grew up in a community that believed God could interact with individuals through miraculous means and objects. For instance, in the 1825 Wayne Sentinel, the newspaper produced in Palmyra, Joseph Smith's hometown, it was reported that buried treasure had been found, quote, by the help of a mineral which becomes transparent when placed in a hat and the light excluded by the face of him who looks into it. People in Joseph Smith's world believed in seer stones, believed in divining rods, and didn't see this kind of folk magic as opposed to Christianity, but in favor of it. Although accounts vary, it also appears that Joseph Smith found a seer stone while digging a well, perhaps on the Chase farm in 1822, when he was 16 years old. Now, in the last couple of years, this seer stone has garnered a lot of attention because in 2015, the church published a photograph of the seer stone as part of the Joseph Smith Papers project. But don't get the idea that we didn't know about the seer stone before then. We've known about the seer stone almost since the time Joseph Smith used it in his youth and as part of the Book of Mormon translation. In fact, in the Comprehensive History of the Church, which was written in the early 20th century, B.H. Roberts included an extensive description of the seer stone, calling it a chocolate-colored, somewhat egg-shaped stone, which the prophet found while digging a well in company with his brother Hiram. Elder Roberts further wrote, it possessed the qualities of Urim and Thummim, since by the means described above, as well as by means of interpreters found from the Nephite records, Joseph was able to translate the characters which were engraven upon the plates. Now, it might seem strange to you to talk about seer stones, but the question we need to ask ourselves was it strange to Joseph? Was this peculiar, or was it something that was part of the world that he grew up in? Researchers have actually gone back to this period and found evidence that there were several people in Palmyra that had seer stones, and that they were used for everything from seeking buried treasure to finding water sources to dig wells. Joseph Smith, during his teenage years, was seen as a person that had prophetic gifts and was employed by certain people in order to use these gifts. Joseph Smith's mother, Lucy Mack Smith, remembered that before their house was completed, a man by the name of Josiah Stoll came from Shenango County, New York, to get Joseph to assist him in digging for a silver mine. He came for Joseph from having heard that he was in possession of certain means by which he could discern things which could not be seen by the natural eye. Lucy continues that Joseph endeavored to divert him from this vain project, but he was inflexible and offered high wages to such would dig for him, and was still very anxious to have Joseph work for him. Consequently, the old gentleman and several others were picked up in the neighborhood and commenced digging. After laboring about a month without success, Joseph prevailed on his employer to cease his operations. It was from these circumstances, namely having worked for a month at digging a silver mine, that the very prevalent story arose of his having been a money digger. Now, was Joseph Smith open about this part of his life? Yes. In 1838, when he did a question and answer session in the Elder's Journal, he was asked directly, was not Joseph Smith a money digger? Joseph Smith replied, yes, but it never was a very profitable job for him, as he only got $14 a month for it. Now, there are other records that indicate that this happened during Joseph Smith's period of time. For instance, some of Josiah Stoll's investors took him to court when he wasn't able to discover the silver mine. And even though they never discovered the silver mine, Josiah Stoll became one of Joseph Smith's most staunch supporters and believed that Joseph Smith possessed prophetic gifts. From records we have of the court case, when Josiah Stoll was asked if Joseph Smith had a seer stone that he could use, Josiah Stoll replied, do I believe it? No, it's not a matter of belief. I positively know it to be true. Joseph Smith, in records in the court, said that when he used the seer stone, time, place, and distance were annihilated, and that all the intervening obstacles were removed, and he possessed one of the attributes of deity, an all-seeing eye.